we held a 3-day public hearing, and there were around 80 individuals that came out and testified. Out of the 80, there was one that I will never forget, because this was a heart-wrenching testimony by a 17-year-old girl. And you know, it's kind of intimidating to come up in front of the board. And she testified and made this statement. She said, "I have lived in the foster care system all of my life, and I'm concerned that when I turn 18, I'll be out of the system. And I don't want to be like the rest of my friends who are either on drugs or have died of drugs or having babies for the welfare checks." And after that testimony, I went back with a colleague of mine. We went back to the board, and they asked the question, is that just that foster care child, or is that the way it is? It so happens that on one of those days, I was invited to speak at an Optimist Club luncheon. And there were 5 college students, I'm sorry, 5 high school, there were 5 high school students who were giving a talk on what they were going to do after high school. And they each knew exactly what they wanted to do, what their career was going to be, and what school they would go to. We called in about 12 foster care children, and we called them into a conference room, and I asked the question, what are you going to do when you become 18? And not one of the 12 youngsters knew what they were going to do next year. And when I said I would not accept the answer, that I don't know what I'm going to do when I turn 18 and I'm out of the system, I said I would not accept that answer. They came back then later, and each one of them said exactly what they wanted to do. What we realized is after one said they wanted to be a mechanic, one wanted to be a nurse, one wanted to do, they all knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I asked the question, well, why didn't you say that in the first place? And all of them responded, it's not possible for me. So with that, we realized and recognized that, are we spending $300 million a year on our foster care system, turning out children that have no hope? And it doesn't mean that all the foster parents are that way. There are some very good foster parents, but there are also some that when the child turns 18, they're out of the system, and then they have no place to go. And we recognize then that we have to have a different direction, and raising the whole child, this is why this was put together, was what are we going to do to raise these youngsters so that they see that there's hope for the future, and that they'll turn out, hopefully, that they have a chance to be self-sufficient, responsible, productive adults.